What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Nice little riff. I like that. Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Katamas, and welcome to the Saturday night edition of The Awakening World. And I want to welcome all of our friends in our Zoom room. I see a lot of our regular friends and family, our Global Peace Tribe family. And as always, it's really fun when you let us know where you are geographically. And good old John from Norfolk, you're almost always the first one there. Scotty from Maui, Shannon from Alabama, and so it goes. Karen Eisenberg from North Carolina, Dia. And so it's really beautiful to have all of you with us. And I also want to welcome those of you watching on Facebook. A big thanks to John and Summer Rimmer and the Sign Network that get us out to as many as 100 Facebook groups and pages. And I'll be doing my best to track what you have to say because it's going to be an interactive show tonight. Or come on into our Zoom room. It's really easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. And you'll get the links to all of our shows for the next 3 months. For those of you who don't know, The Awakening World is on Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. And we take topics that are all about our awakening world. And we have amazing speakers, teachers, musical artists. So definitely please come on and join our Global Peace Tribe. We also send out every Monday an email with replays of the previous shows. And so there's a lot of wonderful things happening with Global Peace Tribe, including we're going to have our very first retreat right here in Sedona. I'm visiting Sedona for a couple of weeks and helping to getting things going for the very first Global Peace Tribe retreat, which is going to be in mid-October. Okay, so tonight's going to be a unique show. We are going to be going back in time. For those of you who don't know, the way this all kind of started was when the pandemic hit. Deborah Giusti and I were going to be doing a fundraising event for our good friend Fantuzzi. Pandemic hit, social distancing, so we turned it into an online event. And that online event turned into Saturday Night Alive, and here we are 2.5 years later. I've gone back and found a really wonderful show that we did on May 23rd, 2020, and the theme was Sacred Activism. And so you're going to be watching video segments from that show where we had live Marianne Williamson, Andrew Harvey, John Robbins, and a few other wonderful people. I'm going to show some of those segments. And one of our wonderful guests from that show was Mirabai Devi, who was just on the show recently. And I asked her, hey, would you be available to co-host with me? And she said, yes. So instead of watching a video, we got something much better. You get the real live Mirabai Devi. There she is. And Mirabai, just want to right off the bat, what does sacred activism mean to you? What comes up for you on that topic?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Sacred activism to me means focusing your entire life, every breath, on what you are most passionate about and what you stand for, and being about making a change, making a difference. Not necessarily everyone is going to be able to change the whole world, but on the areas that you are good at, you are gifted with, that you can contribute and make a difference. And then by changing your world and all the people around you and reaching out and focusing on giving your gifts, that's going to make a global wave. That's going to make a global change, because ultimately we are all one and at the highest level. And so if each and every one of us does our part and follows our heart, our dharma, our purpose, our passion, and really gives our all to that, we are going to see a very different world. So it's not just about changing the world through consciousness or changing the world through action, but it's about being deeply rooted in both. If we are conscious, if we are in consciousness, if we are bringing about a change in global consciousness through taking action in the 3D world, then we have the combination between the two that create sacred activism. So it's a spiritual action that's infused with devotion and intention.
Beautifully stated. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
you.
And I also want to let people know, by the way, and then I'm going to come back and introduce Mirabai, because I should have led with your bio, but Fanny and Vigari are going to be with us live. And Fanny is giving Vigari the finger. Come here, come here, come here. There they are. They're going to be with us doing a couple of songs live, and it's great to have you guys back doing some live songs with us. Really looking forward to that. So coming all the way from Canada. So thank you. I'm going to go back to Mirabai for a moment. And for those of you who weren't with us a couple of weeks ago, a little bit about her. She's a world-renowned spiritual teacher. She's definitely a divine mother and an embodiment of that. And she's a heart-centered inspirational speaker and presenter, truly a channel for divine light, global healer, author, and she's the founder of her own foundation. And the foundation's mission is to raise world consciousness through the awakening and healing of humanity. That's what we're all about. She's doing what the awakening world and all the people that are on this show are all about. So it's beautiful. And you've done, I know that you've written books. We're going to take a look at the books that you've written a little bit later in the show. But you also teach all over the world. And how are you doing with the pandemic? Are you back teaching or still slower? How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's 2.5 years of being based in Maui and Kauai, and I just started going back out on tour and did the whole West Coast, California and Oregon, and Maui, Massachusetts, Florida, and then on to South Africa. So I'm back at it. It's just a slow, gentle opening tour.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Again, welcome everybody. I see a lot of our friends, Eleanor from Vancouver, Terry from Cape Cod, and well, we've got 45 people now all with us, and thank you for letting us know where you're from. All right, so we're going to play excerpts from this show that was done on May 23rd, 2020. And believe me, it's like going back in time because, well, first of all, my hair's a lot shorter, but you're going to get a chance to really kind of hear kind of what was going on. It's like a time capsule in some ways. So, and of course, this was a show that I co-hosted with Deborah Giusti, and I'm going to play a little bit what she had to say about sacred activism. Now, sometimes I've got to try and cue it up just right, so bear with me as I do that. Here we go. It's my pleasure to turn it over to the woman who works very hard to make this happen. My partner in Saturday Night Live, the Global Peace Tribe, Deborah Giusti.
Thank you so much, and with such a heartful welcome to the show, which is going to be amazing again, with incredible top speakers, musicians, comedians. It's definitely an evolutionary variety show that's coming to you in this very challenging time, but we believe very evolutionary times. We believe it's so important for us to come together and still affirm a positive reality through all this. A lot of us believe we are in a cocoon that we've all come for, and we're a part of a major shift that's happening. And the more we can come together in heart and spirit and affirm the positive values and the positive evolutionary concepts that we live by and want to move forward, this is going to be important for everyone. It is every week. And so we thank you so much for being with us. And this is our 7th show that we've done, and it's gone to the next level every single time. And this week we're so proud to have as sacred activists, because our theme is sacred activism, follow your heart. We're going to have Marianne Williamson. We're having Andrew Harvey, who coined the phrase sacred activism, John Robinson, who began very early on in his career, Nina Simons of Bioneers, founder of Bioneers, and some incredible musicians, Larisa Stow, Human and Sasha Rose, who are all sacred activists, as well as comedians, Alicia Dotner and Raina Satori, and many other people who are all wisdom keepers who are going to share their wisdom jewels with you tonight. And when we say sacred activism, follow your heart, we're not just talking about these amazing people that are on the show right now. We're talking about you. We're talking about me. We're talking about everyone. This is really the time to step up, if any other time on the planet. And sacred activism is that divine mission passion that's in your heart, that you feel you're meant to do. And it can be anything that Spirit calls you to do, whether it's creating an emergency preparedness meeting in your neighborhood, or maybe it's just helping a homeless person, or maybe someone down the street that really needs help. Or maybe it's just raising your children to be incredible leaders in the world. What we really feel is Spirit is calling us now. And as we're in this incubation period, in this cocoon, as we're really going within and finding out what we're meant to do and what we're meant to manifest in this next reality, sacred activism is a really key part to moving the world forward in a whole new way. And we have an amazing show coming.
I'm going to stop the video there because we're not going to show all the show. We're going to show some of the highlights of it, but it's interesting going back in time and listening to what she says. And of course, so much of what she said about sacred activism and all of us have a role to play. Well, that's true. And so I really want to invite people to put into the chat box throughout the evening, what does sacred activism mean to you? And I'm going to read some of the comments from our friends watching on Facebook, and certainly from everybody in the Zoom room. And it's easiest for me to track what people are writing in the Zoom room. What is your form of sacred activism? I want to know. So please put that into the chat box. And again, I'll be sharing it. Now, of course, we always start our shows with music. And this is kind of fun. This was the very first time we had Larisa Stow on the show. She was a longtime friend of both mine and Deborah's. And so it was really, really fun having her on the show. And she has since become a big part of the Awakening World because, of course, she co-hosts shows with me all the time, including just last weekend. So, but this is Larisa Stow from 2 years ago, sharing about sacred activism, and I love this song that you're about to hear her play. Enjoy. We have with us, we have Larisa Stow and a couple of her friends with her. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, Scott. Hello, everyone. We're so grateful to be here with you and to be part of this show that's about sacred activism. And for me, sacred activism means that we are for something that we care about, that it's about love, and it's about really standing up for what we passionately care about in life, rather than being against something. So it's about raising our vibration and reaching out our hands and sharing our hearts and Gandhi, this is one of my favorite examples, is that in South Africa, when there was this oppression against the Indians, Gandhi made friends with the Prime Minister, General Smuts, who was at the time about oppression of the Indians, and he would not give up with showing up and having conversations that came from a place of love and bridging friendship with General Smuts. And eventually General Smuts changed his mind and dropped his thinking and dropped into his heart. And when he was asked how Gandhi changed his mind, he said, he didn't change my mind, he changed my heart. And that's what I think of as sacred activism. It's heart work, it's love work. And in that we sing,
I need my mic.
The Peacemakers. Give Vintage Night. Tap on our hearts.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, yeah. Hey, yeah. Love, 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 love. Your enemy. Love, 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 love. Your enemy. Yeah, yeah. You good, 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 good to those who hurt you. Do good, 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 good to those who hurt you. Yeah. 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 We shall be the peacemakers. We shall be the peacemakers. We shall be called. We shall be called children of God. Children of God. Children of God. Bless, 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 bless those who curse you. Bless, 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 bless those who curse you. Oh, I'm praying, praying, praying for those who abuse you. I'm praying, praying, praying for those who abuse you. Yeah, 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 yeah. We shall be the peacemakers. We shall be the peacemakers. We shall be called. We shall be called children of God. Children of God. Children of God. So I want to ask you all, what does it mean to really be a peacemaker in this world? Does it mean putting our ideas out there and being so into what we believe that we can't hear what others are saying? Or does it mean that we can become even more curious, like filled with wonder, trying to understand, trying to connect and understand someone else's suffering or their pain? And if we can do that, then we can begin to build bridges together, we are evolving consciousness. And it goes like this. Love, 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 till there is no end of me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love, 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 till there is no end of me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do good, 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 till goodness becomes you. Do good, 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 till goodness becomes you. Yeah,
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 yeah.
we shall be the peacemakers.
We shall be the peacemakers.
We shall
We
become
shall become
the children of love. The children of love.
Wow. Absolutely wow. Thank you.
Scott, you're on mute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mirabai. I love that song. I just love that song. It is like the theme of one of the theme songs for Global Peace Tribe. And I want to read some of the beautiful comments coming in our Zoom room about sacred activism. This isn't about sacred activism, but Ayada, one of our regulars, says, "Me too. This is one of my all-time favorite songs." And we used to start the show. This was the very first song that we played as kind of an opening song for the show for quite a while. So it's something that everybody kind of knows. It's definitely an anthem for us. I would say that Larisa Stow and Kristen Hoffman have really been kind of our two muses that have consistently provided the music that is the theme for the show and that captures what the awakening world is all about. But let's hear what some of you have to say about activism. And I'm going to go back to a few. By the way, Carol wrote something interesting. She talked about how where she was when this show first happened. She was locked down in Albania when we did the Sacred Activism show, May 23rd, 2020. And I like what she says. "I was in lockdown in Albania and Saturday Night Alive kept me sane during this time. So thank you." And Carol also writes that sacred activism is participating in making sure that those with no voice are protected, including water, air, and all living organisms. That is beautiful, Carol. And she says, "I teach my students how to stand up for what is important to them. It is my life's mission to empower my students around the world." Also, just want to acknowledge that Carol's husband passed on June 30th, and sending you lots and lots of love as this still is a tender, tender time. A couple more comments I want to share. Karen Eisenberg writes, "Sacred activism for me is serving every day from my heart, sending love and light to our beautiful planet, all of humanity, family, friends, and neighbors. Being that example, showing up for all that is." Thank you, Karen. And as I get to know you, you really are a living example of that. Jeffrey Colebrook, I'll put Jeffrey's right here, so I can actually put the spotlight on you, Jeffrey, while I read what you wrote. Jeffrey wrote, "Collective renewal and practice is a powerful way to fortify ourselves to continue to bring forth the light of positive change through an endless reservoir of energy that stems from the spirit. When we can tap into this reservoir, we are much less likely to experience compassion fatigue because we don't run out of energy. Being here and honoring each other is sacred activism. God bless you, Jeffrey. That's beautiful. Thank you. And I'll read a couple more. Atira writes, I don't know if, I'll see if I can find Atira easily. There she is. So I'll put the spotlight on Atira as I'm reading what she wrote. Atira wrote, my parents were members of the Peacemakers based in Gano, Ohio. They were active for race and war and tax issues. And I followed straight from the 60s to now. God bless you. Thank you very much, Atira. Great to have you with us. All right, let's do just two more. Here's Eleanor Joy. You've seen Eleanor before on the show, and I'm going to add her as I read what she wrote. My activism is of a subtle nature, sharing important messages with others, especially the ones not in my choir, also through prayer and meditation, eating organic. One of the speakers mentioned for us to stop eating tuna and stop idling our vehicles. I love tuna, and I've now given it up. And I'm greatly reducing any bit of idling that I did before. Thank you, Eleanor Joy, for learning and growing and taking some of the tips that you've seen on the show. That makes me really happy. Thank you very much. All right. I will read more of these a little bit later, but I want to get to showing Marianne Williamson and what she had to say. And it was very, very powerful. So here we go. Let me just go to the beginning of that.
Wow. Absolutely.
That's actually me thanking Larisa.
Hear more from Larisa and Benji and her drummer. Well, you, Christo. I'm going to hear more from them a little bit later on in the show. I'm going to send it over to Kenny.
All right, let's go to Marianne. There she goes.
Self. That's really what the evolution.
And unfortunately, I've got to be patient with me. There we go.
Our voice to point out what's needed in terms of holistic politics, that you just can't fix one thing here and one thing there. It's a whole systems, which we know in our holistic healing and our spirituality and everything we've been in. And if you can imagine what she's been through, we are so thrilled to honor her. She brought up topics like the reparations for slavery, which is a really touchy thing that most politicians won't touch. And she's speaking the truth of core dysfunction. And because she's our voice, I am so happy to have her here with you now. So Marianne, thank you so much. And with much love, I present Marianne Williamson.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deborah, for that very generous introduction. And it's just exciting. As I said before, it's an honor and it's a lot of fun to be here with old friends like Andrew and John and Ken and all of you. So thank you so much. And I think what you're doing is so important. I'm reminded of a line in the Course in Miracles where it says that an idea grows stronger when it is shared. And as you said, Deborah, at the very beginning, and many of the things that we're talking about here tonight are ideas that all of us already believe in. But as Andrew coined the phrase sacred activism, we have to take the sacred now and make it active. I've been saying for a long time that the era of data collection is over. I see that someone in the chat room is referring to my book, A Politics of Love, which certainly has to do with how we activate the sacred in terms of the world that we live in. The era of data collection is over in the sense that there's so much that we all already know now. And a lot of the spiritual principles that inform books that we've all read, tapes that we've all listened to, now it's time to apply these principles in deeper ways than we ever have before, and also in ways that go beyond the personal self. That's really what the evolutionary leap and challenge and invitation is as we move deeper into the 21st century. to take a lot of the principles that we're all already familiar with and expand our sense of their applicability, not only to how these principles affect my life, but how these principles affect the species. Not only how we manifest the future that you want or that I want, but the future that is the only survivable, sustainable option for our children and our children's children and the human race as the 21st century unfolds. So some of the spiritual principles that I'd like to focus in on are the following. First of all, the universe is intentional. It is always moving in the direction of a greater good. That is the intelligence of the universe. The universe is driven by a divine intelligence or love. But free will means that in any given moment we are choosing. Sometimes we choose consciously, sometimes we choose unconsciously, but we choose whether or not to align our thinking and our behavior with that divine intelligence that is always moving towards greater love. The universe is self-organizing behind that greater love and intention. That's why an embryo is already programmed to become a baby, and the bud is already programmed to become a blossom, and the acorn is already programmed to become an oak tree. Similarly, you and I are already programmed to become the highest, most creative manifestation of our potential in this life. However, free will means that unlike the acorn, unlike the embryo, and unlike the bud, you and I can say, no, don't want to. You and I can separate ourselves from that divine intelligence and think ways that are counter to it and behave in ways that are counter to it. But what is called in the East karma, what is called in the West cause and effect, means that all thought creates form. If I think with love, divine intelligence, co-create, meditate, pray, get my guidance from within, go out there to extend love, then that is what I will create in my life. And that applies not only to me, but it applies to us, because we collectively co-create as well. On the other hand, if I decide not to, and I think without love, and I behave without love, that will create form too. And that will come back to me as well. So the healing is on the level of cause. God himself will not violate the principle that he created by changing the effect unless we're willing to change the cause. Now, what happens in the human body? To me, this is such a profound representation of this principle. Every cell in the body is guided by natural intelligence. Every cell in the body is guided to its full actualization, and within its full actualization, it is assigned. Some cells are assigned to the lungs. Some cells are assigned to the bones. Some cells are assigned to the heart. Some cells are assigned to the pancreas. But wherever the cell is assigned, it then collaborates with other cells. And together, they serve the healthy functioning of the organ and the organism of which they're part. But every once in a while, for reasons that scientists understand to some extent, don't understand to some other extent, every once in a while, a cell disconnects from its natural intelligence, disconnects from that collaborative matrix that forms a healthy body, and instead goes off to do its own thing. Now, what do you call that? When a cell disconnects from its natural intelligence and goes off to build its own kingdom and bring other cells around it that are basically as disconnected from their natural intelligence as is the first one. That's called cancer. It's a malignancy. That is not only a malignancy, that separation from the collaborative nature of the divine order of things is not only a malignancy in the body, it is also a malignancy in consciousness. And that is what has happened to the human race. We have been infected by a malignant consciousness, and that malignancy is a thought. And that thought is, it's all about me. And so we have forgotten that as a human race, our natural intelligence flowing through us leads us to work together. None of us could have done this show tonight by ourselves. It's the collaboration that makes this show what it can be, not only in terms of Deborah and Scott and all those who produced it, but also in terms of all those coming together to listen and to participate. That malignancy of consciousness, where all of us are separate, doing our own thing, rather than collaborating to create the healthy functioning of that which is bigger than any of us, that is where we stand as a human race right now. And that is our decision, which must be made. Everything that is happening right now with this pandemic, we don't know if
Grace Marianne is back with us. So welcome back, Marianne.
Thank you.
I should tell you what happened, by the way, there. Back in May of 2020, when we did the show, her internet went out in the middle of her whole thing. So that's actually still recorded. So I've fast forwarded to where she comes back on. So that's what that was all about. You know, Zoom. I mean, we all are dependent upon our internet, aren't we, for everything to work out okay. All right, here we go, back to the completion of what Marianne has to say.
I'm so sorry that I dropped off. But anyway, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to conclude. What I was saying when I froze or dropped, whatever that was about the pandemic and this period that we're in. We don't know exactly where the virus came from, but whether it came from a lab or whether it came from a wet market, it came from a place in consciousness which had to do with a lack of reverence, either reverence for the planet, reverence for people, or whether reverence for animals. One of those was missing. We do not have a reverent economic system. We do not have a reverent healthcare system. We do not have a reverent political system. Rather, these systems which now guide public policies on this planet are without reverence for life, without moral or ethical responsibility to the people, to the planet, to the animals. And we are now reaping what we have sown. And so the universe is not only self-organizing in all the ways that I said before, it's also self-correcting. The body has an immune system. The psyche has an immune system. And civilization has an immune system. And you and I are the immune cells. So right now, as we think of ourselves as immune cells, that to me is what sacred activism is. Each and every one of us, through prayer, through meditation, through forgiveness, through spiritual practice, are guided, just as every cell is guided, one to the pancreas, one to the lungs, one to the heart. You and I are guided. Some of us will be guided to gardening that we just heard about. Some of us are guided to the music, to be a musician, as we just heard. Some are guided to be cells in education. Some in business. Some in spirituality, and politics is our collective assignment. As we now work together, because no amount of personal charity, no amount of personal action is going to be enough to turn this ship around. We're going to have to collaborate now. And that's all that politics is. All that politics is, we should think of it as a sacred thing. You know, at the very beginning, we heard about Gandhi. Gandhi said that politics should be sacred because everything should be sacred. It should be a way that we come together as we're coming together tonight. And just as so often we visualize what we want for our lives, it's time now to visualize what we want for the planet. Just as we have these intentions for our lives, we should have an intention for the planet. Just as we manifest what we want in our own individual lives, it's time for us to expand all that and come together and make manifest a sustainable and survivable world. We do that through atoning for our lack of reverence, even though we might have ended individually, and I think most people are decent, good, dignified people, but we have not been thinking enough over the last few decades about the public policies that guide the collective and have an effect on millions and millions and even billions of people. It's not enough for us, particularly those of us who are Americans, to talk about how we want to be the peacemakers and sing about being the peacemakers when millions of people all over the world are looking at us and thinking, what are you thinking? When for the sake of a $360 billion arms sale to Saudi Arabia, you are participating in a genocidal war in Yemen. And so it's time for us to mature. And I believe that this is the time, that's what the meaning in many ways of this pandemic is, this crisis moment. All of us get to think more deeply. All of us get to reflect. All of us get to reset. And on the other side of this, my hope, my prayer, and I believe what all of the things that we're talking about here tonight, and such beautiful, this is such, it was described at the beginning of the evening as a variety show. It's a kaleidoscope. One person coming with the music, so one person coming with, talking about the animals, as John will do, and the food. One person talking about sacred activism, as Andrew will do. This is a beautiful thing, but we have to do more than talk. On the other side of this, we need to get going. We need to recreate the world in which we live. And so, I'm so grateful that this is a place where I can actually ask that you join with me. That's what we're doing here together, because we know that the most creative place is not just in the mind, but in the heart. And that has already been said here tonight as well. And so let's all take a deep breath and close our eyes. And see in the middle of our mind a little ball of golden light. And we watch this light as it expands and covers the entire inner vision of our mind. And into this golden light we step, standing in the presence and before the power of the great creator of all things. We atone in our hearts, not only on our own behalf, but on behalf of our nations and our world, for our lack of love. And in this moment, we are ready to begin again. And we pray for a great wave of forgiveness and purification to come upon all our minds and all our hearts. As we now gaze into a different and possible future in which all are fed, all are nurtured, and all are loved. And we dedicate ourselves to that vision, to that possibility, to that reality. We pray to be used in our own ways assigned, that our hands, our feet, our steps, our actions, our thoughts, all that we have and all that we are might be used for a great rebirth. It is for this that we were born. It is for this and to this that we dedicate the rest of our lives. And so it is. Amen. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Much love.
Ooh, powerful. And still, everything she said is still so relevant today. Even though it's interesting to see the little time capsule part of it in the reference to not knowing what the pandemic's all about. I am going to bring my co-host for this week, Mirabai, back on to kind of get her thoughts and responses to what we just heard. And I'm also going to bring on one of our regular co-hosts, Reverend Deborah Moldow is with us. And Rev Deb is going to be my co-host next weekend. But ladies, I would love to just get what stands out for you in what we just heard Marianne share. Mirabai?
Okay, great. Thank you, Scott. And hi, everyone. That was profound, what Marianne said. And, it was profound for me because really the message that came through, the underlying message that came through her message or her teaching for me was, what about karma, the law of cause and effect, and that we are creating our actions, whether they're unconscious or conscious. So whether we're destroying a rainforest or we're, factory farming animals that don't have a voice or consent, or whether we are destroying our planet's atmosphere, or whatever it is that we're doing to nature and to the world. And it seems like this very destructive force. And underneath that destructive force, there's actually that every soul is responsible for their actions from a spiritual perspective. And there's a karmic balance, there's a karmic cause and effect. And the effect is that when we cause beings to suffer, it doesn't matter if it's a animate or inanimate object, an animal, a human being, the planet, nature. When we put out that destruction, we get back suffering, and that suffering affects us in a far greater way than we could ever imagine or know at the time. And so every soul is learning through their actions. They're learning to take responsibility by experiencing the consequences. And knowing this is awakening. And awakening is knowing God, is knowing that there is this underlying intelligence that governs the universe. There is, Vishnu is the immune system of the universe, or the God of the immune system of the universe. And that we actually are functioning through this innate intelligence, even though it seems so incredibly chaotic. And if you look at what has occurred on this planet, and that every war, why are we still killing each other? Why are we still bombing each other? Why is that? Because there's certain people, certain groups around the world that still want that. But what about those of us that don't want that? What about those of us that want peace and that are working together collaboratively to bring about peace? And so what I see with that is when Marianne's talking about us all working together, humanity is those that are wanting war, those that are still wanting to bomb others, those that are still wanting to destroy, are still learning, they're growing, they're evolving their consciousness until they come to the point where they've suffered enough. And they will release that behavior because they've experienced that level of suffering for their creation. And at that point, everyone will collaborate. So I feel in what Marianne's saying, it's so important for us to co-create a new future, a new humanity, a new earth, as we are in a very critical time and in a very critical state. And I'll comment more after Andrew Harvey about that and his talk. But basically, in terms of us coming together to co-create and visioning this new earth, really it's about bringing the unconscious to the conscious. And it's about impacting consciousness and turning this around through making different choices, through co-creating that different new future. And that's why we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we certainly know that if we all work together and we really focus and put our energy into sacred activism and into turning this around, we collectively could co-create something very different, something far more positive. And that could be the rebirth of humanity. And that's what I certainly hope and pray for. So thank you, Marianne, for those profound, soul-stirring words that really open the depth of such a huge, vast topic of what we all need to be questioning and asking right now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mirabai. Thank you for your reflection. And I want to get a few other reflections. We're going to bring on Rev. Deb Moldau. You've seen her on The Awakening World. And for any of you who don't know her, just briefly, I'll tell you a little bit about her. She's an ordained interfaith minister, and she is absolutely committed to assisting in the transformation of human consciousness, just as Mirabai, Devi, and almost all of the people that you see on the show. She's the founder and president of the Garden of Light, which is a beautiful online platform for emerging global spirituality. And I know her pretty much through her work as the director of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, which is a project of the Source of Synergy Foundation. She's wonderful, she's wise, she's fun, and she's going to be my co-host next weekend. But before we talk about next weekend, I'd love to, while it's still alive, what stood out for you in what you heard Marianne say?
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for inviting me to play with you.
Yeah, I always enjoy when you come.
And it's always amazing to listen to Marianne Williamson. I've known her for many, many years, and I have always thought of her as an oracle. Mm-hmm. And I realize that the reason for that is that she is speaking from the frequency of the future. And as Mirabai said, and Marianne was talking about, we are here to create a future that doesn't look anything like the present. And I've seen in the chat a lot of people saying, oh, Marianne for president. Well, Marianne ran for president, and the system chewed her up and spit her out. And why is that? It's because you cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. And Marianne is the voice of the new, of the emergent, of what it could look like if we were all dedicated to the good of the whole. And yes, I understand the karmic consequences of what humanity has done over the ages seem to be heaping back on us right now. And with climate change looming, I mean, it's not even looming anymore, it's here. Look how hot it is across the United States and Europe this very weekend in the summer of 2022. Ahead of schedule, the planet is heating up. Mother Nature is speaking to us in very clear terms. And yet so far, humanity working through our governments, which are still looking behind to their histories to know who they are, instead of looking forward to a possible future to know who we could be. They're not capable of addressing these really scary changes that are coming. Yeah. Not to mention the pandemic that has come back with new variants. And right now I've got this new variant. I have COVID. I'm not that sick, you can tell. Hopefully that the virus is mutating down so that it will not be killing us on a grand scale anymore. But who knows what the next threat will be. Yeah. We have to raise ourselves into the frequency from which Marianne Williamson always speaks. And when she, I love that she speaks as a political activist, and then she goes right into minister. Mm-hmm. Because there isn't any separation for her. That's the new frequency. We are whole, we are one, and we are everything that's within us. Mm. And everything that's within us is being called forth to step into the unknown new. And what she said that was the most encouraging to me is that we are programmed. Yes. And Jude Currivan talks about this in her book that's coming out in the fall, Gaia, Her Story. We are programmed, not just us individually, not just humanity as a whole. The planet Earth in the conscious universe is programmed to bring forth the next level of evolution. And that's how I know that it's possible and we can do it.
Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, you know, there's we have to find that balance of recognizing that our planet is going to go through a lot of big change, and some of that change is going to be very difficult and very painful. And maintaining that balance that I hear you speaking to of acknowledging the pain and having compassion for the people that are suffering, while also holding that high vision for the future. You know, not picturing an apocalyptic wasteland, but picturing an awakened world. And there it is, you know, finding that balance. And I so appreciate the wonderful work you do in so many different ways with all the different things you're doing, Reverend Deb, just like Mirabai. And I'm going to bring Mirabai back on for a minute. Also, just a note, Fanny and Vigari, get ready, because in a couple minutes, we're going to go to you for a live song. And I also want to just acknowledge a couple of comments and then give each of you a chance to share again. Karen just wrote, wow, Reverend Deb, I love what you said. Activist and minister, and everything within us is being called for into the unknown new. Thank you. So thank you, Karen. And yes, Jeffrey Colbrook, when Nassim is ready to release that paper, that life-changing paper, we will absolutely probably do a whole show around it. So that's definitely in my consciousness. And Doug writes, how about Marianne installed as the Secretary of Peace? She's uniquely qualified. So that's a good one too. Before we go to Fanny and Vigari for some music, last thoughts about Marianne or this particular part of the show. And then we're going to have some music, and then we're going to hear from Andrew Harvey. Mirabai?
Yes, I just want to say thank you, Reverend Deb. That was beautiful. And yes, thank you. And what I loved about what you pointed out about Marianne is that we want to know about what's going on in the world. We want to see what's going on. We want to feel the pain and suffering of it, but we don't want to get stuck there. We don't want to stay in fear and in suffering and in terror and in pain. We want to always bring it back into the light and into the holistic vision and into the higher vibration, and use it not just as an objective to send light into it and to pray for it and to help support it and to act to bring about change in our own lives, but also to understand it from a spiritual perspective, to see it as karma returning, to see it as that everything is playing out exactly the way that it should play out based on the law of cause and effect, and that what we're seeing now is the return of the karma. And then to see that we are these creative beings, we are these divine intelligences in form, and that if we do awaken and we do activate, that we can create this different future. And as you said, you know, it's already, and as Marianne said, it's already programmed into us. Mm-hmm. And it's already programmed into the earth and the earth's evolution. We are evolving and earth is evolving, and there's no end to the story, right? It seems as if there's an end, but there's really not an end. It's an ongoing evolutionary process. So in our heart of hearts, we want to trust that process and love, and come from love.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mirabai. I think, yes. Rev Deb, anything you'd like to add before we go into a little music, and then Andrew Harvey?
Two things. One is, this is why we need programs like the Awakening World, because we need to nourish ourselves with the inspiration, not only from people like Marianne Williamson and Andrew Harvey and Mirabai Devi, but also from one another, from everyone who contributes to the chat, everyone who's watching on Facebook. We're building a field together.
Yes.
And that's why I always love the term, the global peace tribe. Yeah. And we have to keep doing this until that is everyone.
Yes.
And then one other thing I want to say, There is a beautiful spiritual teacher in Japan named Masami Sayanji. And I think it's possible that her daughter, Yuka Sayanji, may have been on this show before. I'm not sure. If not, we need to bring her on. Mrs. Sayanji speaks about our inner divinity and how we need to step into that. And in a way, I think she's almost describing like what I was saying about Marianne before, that when your frequency is that much higher, so much more is possible. And one of the things Mrs. Sayanji says is that we've been living in a world of cause and effect, which is the wheel of karma that Mirabai was describing. But she says there is another way to live, and that is by effect and cause. And she says that's possible. So I don't know, I'm not at that level. So I don't think I can do it yet, but it's something, again, for us to dream into, that maybe the constraints of the past will no longer be upon us when we step into our future selves, the new human the future human that Jean Houston has been writing about, that Barbara Marx Hubbard talked about, that we can consciously evolve into. So there is possibility beyond what we right now can see. And when we come together on the awakening world, that's where we step into that open field where we can inspire one another to live into a future that is the world of our dreams.
Let's just take 30 seconds of silence to hold that vision that Marianne spoke to, Mirabai spoke to, and that Reverend Deb just spoke to. The healthy future that we as human beings individually, that we as the human race collectively, that Mother Earth Gaia is programmed to experience as our next level of evolution. Peace, oneness. Thank you so much. Reverend Deb will be back in a little bit, and we'll talk about next weekend because she's my co-host. We've got some really fun shows. So during Global Peace Tribe announcements, we'll talk about that. All right, I'm shifting our attention to Fanny and Vigari. They're back. Our beloved friends Fanny and Vigari are back after a lot of travel, and so good to see both of you again.
Yes, so good to be here with the Global Peace Tribe. In the world.
I say, breathe. There is a fresh wind blowing through. Breathe. Let the good life into you.
Breathe.
together in the arms of love. We are earth angels, spreading peace and love for the love of us all. We can rise in love, in love. Breathe, there's a fresh wind blowing through. Breathe, let the good life into you. There's a transformation going on around you. Can you see the reflection of something that you're feeling inside? It's a revelation. Bring people together in the love revolution for the sake of the world. Yeah. Breathe, there's a fresh wind blowing through. Breathe, there's a good life into you. Breathe, there's a fresh wind blowing through. Breathe, let the fresh wind blow into you. The prophecy says of the white buffalo, it will come. Here we are. The rainbow people are rising, rising. Here we are. We are the lovers of the earth. We are the earth angels. We are the peacemakers. Here we are. Here we are. We are awakening, the earth is rising. We are awakening, the earth is rising. Here we are.
Oh, thank you so much, you two. It's so good to have you back with us. We love you so much. And your music is beautiful. And they're going to play one more song for us a little bit later on in the show. But I want to remind everybody that let's support Fanny and Vigari. And a wonderful way to do that is by buying their music. And so if you go to Bandcamp, you can find them there as the Mystiques 1111, or the Mystiques 1111 on Bandcamp. And that's a wonderful way where we can support them. And we love Fanny and Vigar. They've become such an important part of the Global Peace Tribe. So thank you both so much. And a big thank you to all the people helping you with where you are, setting up the stage and your equipment and all that. So thank you to your support team, Max and others. Thank you.
We're indeed blessed.
We are blessed. And again, like Marianne said, it's about collaboration, right? The cells collaborate. And so how beautiful the collaboration that brings together your being able to be on the show with us tonight. So we appreciate the beauty of collaboration. Thank you.
So it is. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. We're going to hear actually from two people next. Veronica Monet is a longtime friend of mine. I've known her for decades, and she's an activist and a brilliant speaker. And I wanted to share what she had to say when we did our show on sacred activism. May 23rd, 2020 is when we first did this show. So this is what she had to say back then. And all the way from Costa Rica, we had a brief little internet glitch, but then Maxim embraced it. It came all the way through, so we're grateful for that. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, we have another wisdom jewel, and this is with actually a friend of mine who I have tremendous admiration for. You are looking at Veronica Monet. And Veronica is an activist in many ways. She's been doing the good fight, the good work for a long, long time. She's an internationally acclaimed sexual and spiritual empowerment change agent. I love that term. We are change agents, aren't we? She's been on CNN, Fox, Politically Incorrect, Yale, Stanford, UC Berkeley, are all places where she has spoken. And so she's really quite special.
So there was an internet glitch.
Just a reminder to keep, I'm going to try and find him and mute him. Human, you gotta mute yourself, partner. Thanks. Back to Veronica. She began her activism in college, where she volunteered for a domestic violence shelter. And since then, she's been a really vocal and often highly visible spokesperson for sex worker rights, as well as LGBTQ. Today, her activism includes working for John and Ocean Robbins' Food Revolution Network to bring consciousness and compassion to our food choices. And we'll be hearing from John a little bit later in the show. But right now, Veronica, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Scott, thanks so much for having me here. It's an honor and a privilege. And I'm just grateful to be with all of you from around the globe. What a wonderful, wonderful moment this is. It's also a really trying time for all of us. And there are times as an empath, I can feel the pressure of 7.8 billion people trying to figure out what their lives are going to look like tomorrow. And also just trying to cope with today. So there's a certain amount of grief that I know, whether we're conscious of it or not, whether we're feeling directly impacted in really adverse ways, I think we're all picking up on that planetary grief right now. So, and I love the topic tonight that we're going to be talking about, sacred activism. Really resonated with what Marianne shared about collaboration, talking about the cells of the body. And I think that it's really important that we look for all the ways in which we can partner, not just with each other, and not even just with the other sentient beings on this planet, although I think all of that's incredibly important. But I think it's really crucial that we develop a spiritual practice that is perhaps a little bit different than the ones that some of us might have been exposed to when we were growing up. I'm specifically talking about our relationship with the divine and how sometimes in prayer we have learned to come to our version of God or a great spirit or the goddess, whatever terminology works for you, perhaps your higher self, with some supplication where we're actually kind of entreating the divine to help us or assist us. I think that energy sometimes puts us in a place where we're almost kind of begging or wishing. I think the better energy for us is to partner with the divine. So with that thought in mind about actually being in partnership with the divine, I want to offer my favorite prayer. I find that the Serenity Prayer, even though it's been around for quite some time, really speaks to this idea of partnership. And what I mean when I partner with the divine, I'm not only looking for guidance when I go to prayer, I'm also looking to let go, because I don't actually have control over the outcomes. And if I can inhabit that space of letting go, I actually can oftentimes realize better results, and I have more longevity towards my activism because I am not getting bitter or attached or frustrated. I just keep going, keep bringing my best self. So I would love to invite all of you to say the Serenity Prayer with me right now. And it does use the word God. I'm going to use the word God because I've gotten comfortable with the term. I didn't used to be comfortable with it when I was much younger. But feel free to insert whatever word works for you. So I just want to say that now. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Veronica. Veronica has a lot.
Scott, you're on mute.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I get so excited to jump in with what I want to share. And I'll put you on too as my co-host, because that is such a beautiful, simple prayer. And I like how she addressed that most of us have maybe rejected or pulled away from the religion we were raised with. So almost everyone I know broke away from the original religion they were raised with because they saw the hypocrisy or the humanness of it. But it's so important for us then to either come back to it or find our own new spiritual path. It's so important for us to have a practice, whatever that practice may be. It can be yoga, meditation, a martial art form, playing a musical instrument. And I think that's something you help people with, Mirabai, is to really cultivate a deep spiritual practice, yeah?
Yeah, I do. Do you want me to share a little bit about that?
Sure. And then we'll go to Andrew Harvey.
Okay, just briefly, yes. We have the divine within ourselves, and most of us are disconnected from that because religion, many of the religions taught us to go through the priest or whomever the medium was to get to God. And so we've disconnected from that direct partnership that she so beautifully expressed. And what we need to do to go back to it, if we're not already in that state of internal connection, is a spiritual practice. Now, the spiritual practice is not for the soul, it's for the mind, it's for the ego, it's for the personality, so that the veils can come down and we can reform that connection. So practicing, I do give people many different Sanskrit and Buddhist mantras to practice. Of course, we can do English mantras too. Affirmations, positive, creative, powerful affirmations. Remember, our speaking words or our spoken words are our affirmations every day. So instead of being unconscious, we want to be conscious of the affirmations that we're speaking into creation. So doing positive, powerful, affirming affirmations of what we want to see, that we want to manifest or create in our life is essential. And then finding time to also calm down the mind, the ego, the brain waves, and go into that deeper inner connection with God within, or the source of life, your God self, your higher self, and doing that through bringing yourself through a breathwork practice, a pranayama practice. There's many wonderful practices. Just a simple one would be an alternative nostril breathing practice. breathing in each nostril, breathing out each nostril for 10 to 15 minutes, just to calm down and balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And then also forgiveness prayers, practicing forgiveness for yourself, ho'oponopono, practicing forgiveness for others, and utilizing forgiveness to open the heart as a practice and to clear the negativity or duality. Whenever you come back into forgiveness, you've opened yourself to healing. You've opened your heart to healing. So that forgiving ourselves first is a huge practice. And then, of course, grounding is really important. Grounding with Qigong, grounding with yoga, grounding with asana. And of course, there's many wonderful spiritual practices and paths, but I share a lot of those practices on my website, freely available for people to have a practice. So I just put that out there, and I'm curious to know, all of you that are watching this, what are your spiritual practices? What do you practice? What do you do? And what do you find effective? I'd love to hear about that on the chat bar. What has worked for you and what has not worked for you and what has really helped you? And we'd love to hear about it.
Great suggestion. So again, put into the chat box, what are some of the spiritual practices that you engage in? How does it impact you? Like how does that spiritual practice influence or impact your life? So beautiful. Thank you, Mirabai. We'll be hearing much more from her in a little bit. I get to introduce you to my dear friend, Andrew Harvey. Hang on a second. You can come on in. This is my wonderful host, Gio, bringing me dinner. How blessed I am.
His host and handler.
Yes. This is Gio.
Greetings, everyone. Nice to be swimming in these cool waters with you all.
And he just brought me a beautiful bowl of rice and vegetables. I get to introduce Andrew Harvey. And honestly, Andrew is absolutely my favorite living author. He's an extraordinary man who's lived an extraordinary life. He's collaborated with everybody from the Dalai Lama to us, the Global Peace Tribe. And he's passionate and dynamic. And he coined the phrase sacred activism. He actually wrote a book called Hope, A Guide to Sacred Activism. And that was very much the inspiration for tonight's show. And so I was so delighted when we decided to do this show, and Andrew agreed to be on it. And he since, after doing the show, did several events with us. He did a 4-hour workshop with Global Peace Tribe, which you can find on our YouTube channel. It's beautiful. In fact, I'll put the links to that in the chat box. A reminder for all of you watching on Facebook, come on into the Zoom room. It's so much easier to get all the information and the links that we're going to be providing. And you just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. Come on into the Zoom room with us. All right. Here is one of my favorite human beings, Andrew Harvey.
There we go. Okay, you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Hello, everybody. I'm thrilled to be with you. I'm thrilled to be in the company of my great soul sister and beloved friend, Marianne, and my friend, Nina Simons, whose words were so clear and pure. And I'm thrilled to be in the company of such gifted musicians and poets. Because as we all must now know, sacred inspiration is at the core of sacred activism. Four years ago, I was sitting with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, in a garden in Australia. And we were speaking about sacred activism. And I asked him, what message do you think I should give to the growing movement of sacred activism that was engendered by my book, The Hope? What message should be the one that all sacred activists everywhere imprint upon the core of their hearts? And he laughed wildly, first of all, and then he became very concentrated and very focused. And he said, humanity is in danger of extinction. Prepare for the very worst and work tirelessly with joy and compassion for the very best. In the intermediary 4 years, we have had the major reviews from the United Nations that told us that if we don't solve the climate crisis within the next 10 years, we will be in free fall. We have had also the major report that came out last year that announced that 1 million species are now on the brink of extinction. We have had the election in this country of the most depraved, corrupt, and damaging administration, which has proved a complete disaster morally, spiritually, and in every other way. And we now have erupting globally the coronavirus pandemic that, for me and for many of us, announces the great event that we have all been expecting for a very long time. The great event that signals to all those with visionary eyes to see that we are now in a massive, comprehensive, global, dark night process, on the outcome of which depends the whole human future and the future of a great deal of the natural world. I have never been calmer or happier or more grounded or more joyful. But my joy and my happiness does not depend in turning away from the exploding tragedy of our burning world. And the reason why it doesn't depend upon turning away or denying any of what's going on is that I know from my own inmost experience that the dark night is potentially not at all the end of humanity, but potentially the excruciating and amazing birth canal of a new embodied divine humanity. And I know this because I lived through a terrifying and horrifying and extreme dark night which lasted 10 years, out of which came the realization that created sacred activism and gave the world a map for sacred activism, which hundreds of thousands of sacred activists all over the world are now rejoicing in and adding to with their own wonderful creativity in thousands of gorgeous and glorious ways. So I know that our severest agony can prepare our greatest joy. The deepest chaos we go through can help us reach a far richer, wider, more inclusive order. And the near insane anxiety that any dark night produces can help us all do what all of us, I believe, must now do, which is to allow this burning in the world to burn away all our illusions and sentimentalities and follies and narcissisms, so that we can embrace with our full being, heart, mind, soul, and body, the great birthing force that the divine is offering us now, in the time of our greatest dereliction and need, but also in the time of our most amazing possibility, the force of sacred activism. I define sacred activism in two ways, which I hope will be truly helpful and inspiring for you. The first is that when you bring together profound spirituality with wise action, you create a force in you and in the world that is stronger than either activism on its own or spirituality on its own. And we've seen in the 20th century what can be accomplished even in dire situations by beings like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Lech Walesa and Nelson Mandela and Jane Goodall and the Dalai Lama, who have turned up inspired and inflamed with this force. We've seen how solutions in intractable situations can be engendered and lived out and embodied and installed by this force. So none of us now have any excuse, I think, not to become in our own unique and fervent ways sacred activists. If you love the world, you are being challenged at the deepest imaginable level to turn up in the splendor and fire and joy and purpose of your love and put that love into wise, radical action now with others. The most important thing that I have learned in my journey, which has been terrible and wonderful, is that the only way forward is a way inspired at the deepest possible level by sacred practice and sacred inspiration. A mysticism that floats off into the transcendent and abandons the world and its agony is just a higher form of narcissism. And an activism that isn't grounded in spirit will burn out, especially in the excruciating circumstances that you and I find ourselves in now, and which will get worse. Because don't kid yourself. The coronavirus is a terrible crisis. There will be a second wave. We won't be rid of this virus for a long time. There will be other pandemics. The bats have 1,400 varieties of coronavirus. And there are viruses that are lurking in the tundra, which will be released. And then there is, of course, the growing crisis of climate change, of horrific inequality, and of radical spiritual impoverishment, and of the increasingly ruthless and despotic and conscienceless actions of an elite that will try and cling to power. But do not despair. and don't be afraid. Because this dark night, I have discovered, is designed perfectly to compel you and I to get very much more intense, serious, and focused about two essential things. Spiritual practice, which we all need to do more powerfully and more concentratedly, and action inspired by sacred consciousness, which all of us, if we're honest, know that we must step up 3 or 4 notches at least to be worthy of this vast death crisis in which we are, which could also be the birth canal for a new humanity, but only, please believe me, if you and I get real about where we are, get down with both the agony and the possibility of where we are, and get going with a far greater focus, a far greater selflessness, a far greater urgency, and a far greater and deeper joy and compassion than anything that we have yet imagined ourselves to be capable of. You know this if you're real. I know this when I'm real. And the Dalai Lama, who is real, knows this. And his message, I repeat, is humanity is in danger of extinction. Prepare for the worst, but work tirelessly with compassion and joy for the very best. I'm going to end by the poem of Rumi that I have on my fridge, which gives me courage and chutzpah and ecstasy and fearlessness every day, in the hope that it will inspire you, whom I love and honor and challenge and beg to get real, get down, and get going. The greatness of my body can only become wine after the winemaker tramples me. I surrender my body like grapes to his trampling, so my inmost heart can blaze and dance with joy. And although the grapes go on sobbing blood and screaming, I cannot bear any more anguish, I cannot bear any more cruelty. The trampler stuffs cotton in his ears and says, "It is I who am the master of this work. You can deny me if you want. You have every excuse. But when, through my passion, you reach perfection, you will never be done praising my name. Go through the dark night nobly, feel it all, choose your mission, pursue it fearlessly and sincerely, and that poem will come true in your blood and heart and cells, as it has come true for me.
Thank you so. I just love that man, and I love his passion and his way of framing things. And I see a lot of comments coming in. Very, very powerful. I have put into our Zoom room chat box where you can get more of Andrew Harvey. His website is his name, andrewharvey.net. andrewharvey.net. And there's a lot of wonderful things that he has. He's, of course, been on the show several times since he did this one, but this is where you can get his latest books, his workshops. This is the book, by the way, that he will give you for free. Just put in your name and address, and he will send you the audiobook straight to your inbox. And it's the audio version of The Hope, which is what was his book about sacred activism and the inspiration for this show. So I strongly encourage all of you to do that. Get the free audiobook, listen to it, please. Also, I've put into the chat box, he did a 4-hour workshop for us. And then after it was over, he said, give it away, give the recording away. He didn't. I said, do you want me to monetize it? He said, no, give it to your Global Peace Tribe. So I've put those links in as well. Ayada writes, oh my God, that was breathtaking. I heard that message on the original show and it's even more poignant today. And notice how he said there will be other pandemics and it will evolve, and there will be other waves. And 2 years ago he said that, and of course that's what we've experienced. He's a wise man. I'm going to bring on my co-host Mirabai to hear what stands out for you in what he shared, Mirabai.
Thank you, Scott. First of all, I thought that what Andrew shared was brilliant. And I'm glad to know that you can get a free audiobook, because I would like to get The Hope. And I wrote a few notes while Andrew was talking. This is the second time I've heard this talk. And I wanted to address some of his points because I felt that they were so profound. The first point, where he expressed humanity in talking to the Dalai Lama, he expressed the Dalai Lama sharing that humanity is on the verge of extinction. And I have felt that in my own intuitive guidance is very accurate. For over 3 decades, I have spent working with groups of people and individuals around the world to help them to wake up and to activate and to get on their path because of the severe threat and concern of humanity going into extinction. So I dedicated the last 3 decades of my life to this message, in not only giving sacred activism in terms of spiritual teachings and spiritual healing and awakening work, but also to helping raise the global consciousness in the attempt for us to really make it and not to become extinct. The United Nations had said many years ago, I remember hearing back almost in 2012, that the United Nations said that we had 10 years left in terms of our destruction of the environment. And certainly and I'm sure many of you have read about, and this was in May 2022 when Andrew gave this talk, about the over 1 million species that have gone extinct. And I've certainly been tracking and following that and doing global healing teleconferences and global prayers for this very subject of over 1 million species going extinct. And that was 2020 May. That means by 2022, here in July, August, there's a lot more. I loved the way he expressed the exploding tragedy of our burning world. And our world is burning, literally. I also, in my global healing teleconference, I was tracking all the fires, all the floods, the hurricanes, the tsunamis, and the increase of them. And I remember that in 1 year, we had more than we had had in 10 years. I don't remember exactly which year that was, but it wasn't too long ago. And of course, with the heat rising around the country, the fires that are happening in London and Europe and the West Coast and so forth, all of you that live around those areas are very well aware. But he talked about how his joy does not depend upon it. And I thought that was so beautiful, because with spiritual practice, that's the difference between spiritual activism or sacred activism and just activism, is basically your joy is cultivated through your connection with your soul, your connection with spirit, your connection with your true self. Your joy is not dependent on what's happening outside of you or on anyone else, right? The nature of the soul is joy. So the more you do meditation, breath work, mantra, forgiveness prayer practices, and affirmations and self-inquiry practice, the more conscious you are of your thoughts, words, and actions, the more your joy can bubble over, and you can lead through your example while still living in full compassion and not getting burnt out. Is, I think, the way it was described is important, because we get burnt out on our compassion, we get burnt out on our empathy. That can also make us depleted. And so to regenerate, we have to stop watching the media, watching the news, pull our energy inward and regenerate, revitalize, and do our inner juicing up with our spiritual practice. And then I thought it was an interesting perspective about how Andrew talked about the burning away, this dark night of the soul in the world is burning away our sentimentality. And he used many different words, but I'm going to summarize it into our sins and our negativities, or our negative behaviors, or our destructive behaviors. And in a way that is true, tapasya is a yogic concept on the spiritual path, and I'm sure you're familiar. Tapasya means burning or purification. So in a sense, I liked how he threw that in, that the purification of the world is also occurring through what was hidden in the unconscious is now coming into the conscious. What is burning down the world, the raging burning down the world, is actually really coming in for a purpose, to purify us, to clarify the gold, to melt the gold, so that we can become more clean, more pure, more connected, more divine, and not just in our narcissism, our selfishness, our egocentric I, me, mine behavior. And so he was talking about bringing together sacred and activism, spirituality and activism. So also addressing divine spiritual political leaders. I grew up in South Africa. Gandhi lived in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhi. I was blessed to go to his ashrams in India. I was very connected, and my family was very connected with Nelson Mandela and Bishop Tutu. Growing up in South Africa, our family was very close to both of them. And also the Dalai Lama had regular visits to South Africa, giving great inspirational speaking and teaching. And all of these speakers we were all kind of connected through global peace work in South Africa. So beautiful references. And I liked how he combined that the only way forward is that an individual that floats into the transcendent is a higher form of narcissism, because when you're going into the transcendent, even if it's for bliss or unity consciousness or divine union, that's wonderful. But how are you grounding that in activism to bring about change? How are you, amidst your, Andrew used the word excruciating circumstances of what's happening in the world right now, and actually doing something about it practically? How are you devoting your life in the small ways, in the big ways? Some of the great saints say, utilize every breath for service, for activism, to make a change, right? So that your life is worthwhile and not a waste. So I do want to say that, the agony and the ecstasy, and bringing that all together with this far greater sense of focus and urgency of getting into a deeper joy and compassion. So again, yes, humanity is in the danger of extinction. Dalai Lama said, prepare for the worst, and we are, and yet work tirelessly for the very best. Well, I've spent 3 decades working tirelessly day and night towards helping to transform this very situation we're talking about today. It's been a life devotion and a life work. And with that said, I want to ask all of you, Scott has been doing this incredible show. Deborah and Scott did this together. I know it changed the lives of so many thousands of people around the world. It's been such an inspiration to me. I've been blessed to be on some of these shows, and also how has it changed your life, and what do you feel is your sacred activism? How are you bringing meaning into your life? What is your dedicated mission? and how are you bringing about change, not just so that it makes you feel good about yourself, but just so that you feel you are doing something to contribute, because living our purpose is heavenly, right? We all want to be here to live our purpose and be a part of the change. So share with us on the chat box. We'd love to hear about your forms of sacred activism. I know you already shared earlier, but just in terms of your spiritual practices or your sacred activism in terms of what you're doing in the world and your community, what a great way for us all to connect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirabai, for that. First of all, your beautiful reflections. And again, yes, we want to hear from all of you. And I'll read, or Mirabai will read some of the comments that come in. And thank you for your decades of world service. Thank you, Mirabai. And likewise, Reverend Deb has also been doing this for a long time. And I want to take a minute first off to see if there's anything you want to add about Andrew Harvey. And then Reverend Deb wanted to share with you what we're going to be doing next weekend. But before we get to next weekend, anything you want to add about what stood out for you from Andrew's beautiful talk?
Well, I think this entire program, Marianne and Andrew and Mirabai, everyone has given us our marching orders.
Yeah.
So that's how it feels right now. And some people may feel a little bit overwhelmed by that. Like, wait a minute, what can I do in my life? These people are talking about having dedicated 30 years to this, or having a very advanced spiritual practice. And I actually think it's a perfect segue to next weekend's shows, because next weekend, when I have the honor of co-hosting with you, we're going to be featuring members of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. Now, all of those people have also dedicated their entire lives to this. But what's going to be interesting next weekend is we're going to feature synergy circles. Mm-hmm. And synergy circles are like the action arm of the evolutionary leaders. They are the opportunity for different members of the group to get together, and often with people who are not in the group, who are also passionate about some particular avenue of action. So Friday, we'll be looking at people who have been part of what we call the bridging circle. That circle developed right after the extraordinary events of January 6th that we've been hearing the hearings about now. But the people who are going to join us come from all different approaches, and they're going to talk about what they do in their work to bridge this seemingly unbridgeable consciousness divide that we have right now, even within the United States of America, where you would think that there would be a certain level of everybody being at the same consciousness. That's what we thought when I was growing up, but that has proven to be quite mistaken. So you're going to hear a lot of different approaches. And then on Saturday night, we're going to have members of the Conscious Business Synergy Circle, which I think was our very first thematic synergy circle. And the whole idea of that is that business can do what politics can't even do, right? I mean, we know what's running the world right now is the so-called economy, which no one's ever seen or heard from, and yet it's running all of our lives. And we have visionaries who are working toward a whole different way of business serving humanity. And we're going to have some extraordinary guests. We're going to hear from Professor Irvin Laszlo, who just celebrated his 90th birthday in Budapest. And he's just one of the original visionaries. And we'll hear from Steve Farrell of Humanities Team and Peter Matisse of the Conscious Business Institute. And Linda Bjork of Becoming Business. And I hope that just hearing these people speak into their visions of how different things could be will be inspiring for you. And then on Sunday morning, Kristen's going to organize some artists for us, right?
Yeah, so the Sacred Sunday show next week is going to be co-hosting with Kristen Hoffman. Reverend Deb is at her regular Sunday service that she does in San Miguel de Allende. So Kristen's going to jump in and co-host on Sunday. And she has a synergy circle that is artists that are catalyzing evolution. And so we're going to have some wonderful kind of next generation younger people that are musicians, poets, dancers, sharing. So that's going to be the Sacred Sunday show next week. So Reverend Deb, thank you so
The whole weekend of evolutionary leaders. And, we're not saying we're the only evolutionary leaders. Everybody who's listening to this show is leading the evolution. So we just hope we can give you a little bit more inspiration for your journey. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rev Deb. And get well, and I will talk to you soon. Much love. Looking forward to doing the show with you next week.
Me too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's funny. Like there's that part of me, it's like, I'm an evolutionary leader, I'm part of the club. And I own that. I've got that inside. And absolutely everybody is here to play their role. And some of us have been fortunate to be kind of in tune with what our role might be at an early age. And some people haven't, and there's no less evolution. We all have our own unique journey. And so I want to acknowledge any of you that are in a timeout. Maybe you're in between times in your life. Maybe you've completed one thing and you're still now waiting for your marching orders of what to do next. Some of you, it might be a time of rest because you've raised 3 children, or you work so hard, or you do whatever you did. So nobody is better than anybody else. We all are here tuning in, supporting each other. Again, the different cells like Marianne Williamson spoke of today, really all supporting each other as best as we possibly can. And so, and that's what the Global Peace Tribe is all about. We're all here to, you see the video I play every week. What is it? Be informed, be inspired, take action. And that's what it's all about. That's what the awakening world is about. The next video I'm going to show is short. It was also from the Sacred Activism show. And as fate would have it, I had been brought in to do some coaching. That's what I do. That's my day job, is coaching. And it was a mediation. And I met the mayor of Encinitas. And I said, I'm doing the show on sacred activism. And as I got to know her, she, has gone into politics as sacred activism. I said, would you be willing to be on the show and give a little short sharing? She's very eloquent. She said yes. So here's an opportunity to meet the mayor of Encinitas and how she is showing up in her form of sacred activism. Politics, which, oh my gosh, I would not want to do that. So God bless her for that, playing that role. Here we go.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I am thrilled to be here and have really enjoyed watching the beginning of this. And particularly, I found Marianne's statement that politics should be sacred because public policy is what guides the collective. And I think it's a really important thing to remember when you're thinking about what is sacred activism. Because when I think of that phrase, what I believe it is true that it depends upon sacred inspiration to get to the activism, but politics really is the art of the possible. So I think of politics and the public policy decisions we're making as existing right in this really thin line between the aspirational and the status quo. And so how do we move off of the status quo of how we've always done things to change the world and to tackle some of these big problems? The big problems like climate change or dealing with homelessness. I'm a mayor in the city of Encinitas, which is a coastal community in California. And so moving that needle and being active is the art. So the art of the possible. What is it that we can do in this world today to make a difference? And so there was a request earlier for a call to action, and I'll repeat it in the simple terms that I think we all really know and are deeply aware of, which is that you have to participate. I think we need to be always taking care of the self and the soul and doing the self-care, but then we have to use that as our foundation and go out into the world and vote, raise your voice, speak your values, participate in those online forums, send the letters to the editor, define the world that you want, because when you don't speak and you don't participate, it doesn't make any difference. And that is the most profound thing to remember, is that you have to participate in order to make a difference. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and the invitation to participate. And I am looking forward to the rest of this show. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thanks for.
Yeah, so that was Catherine Blakespeare, the mayor of Encinitas. And there's so many ways that we contribute to the world. And one of the wonderful ways is through art. And so we're going to now go back to Fanny and Vigari, because they certainly are helping to raise consciousness through the beauty of their music. And Fanny and Vigari, thank you. I know it's late. It's 11 o'clock where you are. So thank you so much for staying up late and being in the studio you've created there. And what do you have for us tonight?
We have let the music play because here we are living our, what are we living, Vigari?
Our so-called dream.
Our so-called dreams, and we are living our passion, and what is the healing of the world is our music. So here we are. Hope you enjoyed.
Thank you so much. It's all Twinkle, our beloved Fanny and Vigari. It's so good to have you guys back on the show again.
Thank you. You're so inspiring, Global Peace Tribe. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your light, and to be here to make this world a better place. You are all mentoring us, and thank you so much for the truth that you speak, and that is so important now. And you're the best. Thank you.
And stick around. I know you got to probably break down, but we're going to play the video of John Robbins next. And I know John is a hero of yours, so perfect timing.
Thank you. I've been following his footsteps for 30, 40 years. We've been both vegans for a long time, and we totally admire this human being. Diet for a new America, and so it is. We are changing the world with our loving for the planet, the food we eat, the thoughts we think, and we're supporting with our mouth and our money.
Well, thank you. Well, that's a perfect opportunity for me to introduce you to John Robbins, who we're going to hear from next. And again, this is when he was on the show a couple of years ago. I've known John for decades. He's best known as the author of Diet for a New America, which was really a revolutionary book. It came out in 1987, and it was for many the Bible of creating an understanding of why vegan is very, very healthy. And he pointed out the horrors of factory farming, the economic impact, the health impact. His son, Ocean Robbins, I met when he was 10 years old. He came to my camp, and now he's been on this show. He's become quite a leader. And John has been just a beautiful force. And what's wonderful is John's not an angry vegan. In fact, he has a beautiful quote, which is, "It's better to eat a hot dog with love in your heart than the perfect vegan meal with judgment." And so we're not here to promote veganism or people who still eat meat. We are here to promote doing everything with love, doing everything with love. And that's very much part of John and how John kind of manages himself. So anyway, it's my pleasure to introduce you to John Robbins and what he has to say about sacred activism. Of the Food Revolution Network, and we're going to be hearing about that. John, thank you so much for being with us, and what would you like to share?
Well, thank you, Scott. And thank you to Deborah and to Ken and to Lori for all the work that has been required to put this on and bring us all together.
Now, for some reason, we're hearing his voice, but the video's not playing. Let me see if I can get that to work. I'm not quite sure why that's happening. These things happen. Here we go. All right.
Tonight. And
there we go.
Each evening that you've done this is a contribution to the work we're all doing in our hearts, in our lives, in our minds, with everything we have to try to bring about the healing that our earth and our spirits so deeply need. Somebody once said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. Well, we have a lot of crises today. And I don't know what you who are listening, which crisis is impinging on you the most right now. What is causing you the most distress or discomfort or motivation to change, to heal, to grow, to transcend, to transform, whatever it is that is eating at you, forcing you, evoking you, triggering you, calling you forward in these times, in these very difficult, very challenging times. But what I do know is that when we are faced with serious crises, personal death, bankruptcy, I mean, my heart is really going out right now as the economic dominoes are falling to all the people who are frightened financially, who are suffering financially, all the people whose health is at risk, who know people who have lost loved ones, who fear for their lives or their health. There is so many reasons right now that we could despair, that we could become hopeless, that we could resign ourselves. And yet there's something inside each of us that won't allow that. And Andrew spoke about it, and Marianne spoke about it, and Nina spoke about it, and Veronica spoke about it. And why we're here today is to feel it and know it and be blessed by it. Because it gives our lives grace, it gives our lives meaning and commitment and purpose and passion when we open to it. And crises and difficulties and pain sometimes are what's needed to open that door to blessing. And I want to speak of one other thing that I think will enable you to find the meaning and the purpose in the crises, to find the power and the empowerment and the beauty in this world and in yourself, whatever comes. And that is, I want to ask you, have you ever known a non-human animal that has enriched your life, that has made you more human, that has given you something in your heart that you treasure and that you know is good and true and beautiful and worthy? Most of us have known an animal or more than one that have gifted us in that way. So I ask you, invite you now to think of, remember an animal that has blessed your life in this way, blessed your heart, and bring that animal's gift to you, to your consciousness right now.
So you become aware of the presence that this animal has been for you, or was for you, or is for you, and will be for you as you go through whatever crises are yet to come for you and for us. Because we have adapted a relationship to the other life forms on this planet that's basically predatory, that's basically exploitive. And we've deprived ourselves in doing that of the companionship and the caring that we need to be fully human and to play our part in the unfolding of this precious planet that we're here to do. So think of that non-human animal that's blessed your life. Maybe this animal's still alive, still part of your life. Maybe it's in the past. Maybe it's someone you knew, a being you knew really well, shared your life with, still do, maybe. Maybe it's an animal you only knew for a moment, only saw for a moment, but that moment was special and magical and still is living in you. And the reason I ask you to bring that animal to your consciousness right now is because that animal can nurture you through the crises to come. If you remember the gift that non-human being, we're not alone as human beings. Thank God. Because we're part of creation. We forgot that sometimes. We act as if we're not. We think we're separate, and we believe sometimes we're better than the rest of life. But we know better than that. That's a fallacy. That's just the myth, the illusion that we need to break free from so that we can live with reverence again. Reverence for ourselves and each other, reverence for all of life, all the web of life. In all of its manifestations, the challenging ones, the terrifying ones, the beautiful, life-affirming ones, and know that we're not alone. Know that you're not alone. We are in this with other creatures. Now, there's a wave of extinction passing across the planet as a result of human activities, primarily. That is a tragedy and something that causes me, at least, and many of us, deep, deep anguish. What right do we have to do that? Well, we don't have the right, but we've done it. We're doing it. And thank goodness we're not alone. We can actually recover our connections to all beings and to all our relations, past and future. We can recover our connection to each other and ourselves, and our hearts are the doorway through which that connection can happen. So I want to reach out to you right now and say that if you're feeling suffering and hurt and misery and pain, that's okay. If you're feeling afraid, that's okay. If you're feeling hopeless, that's okay. Because when we feel it all, when we look to see what we're unwilling to feel and allow that also to be, then a power can unite us and integrate us and bring us together with all the beings that have loved us ever, all the beings that we have loved ever, all the potential beings that we can remember and recreate that connection with, and they will be here for you in your crises and in your moments of beauty and blessing. So let us give thanks for all beings. Let us remember our connection to all beings. Let us be fed by those connections to all beings. They will see us through. They know better than we do. They always have and they always will. One of my prayers has always been, may all be fed, may all be healed, may all be loved. And I want to say that 2 more times and invite you to say it with me, wherever you are. May all be fed. May all be healed. May all be loved. May all be fed. May all be healed. May all be loved. Thank you.
Thank you. What a beautiful, beautiful man. And I didn't mention one of the things that's interesting about John is he's John Robbins, and he's the son of the co-founder of Baskin Robbins Ice Cream. And he actually left the family business and went through a lot of drama because he realized that unfortunately there were a lot of practices to making that ice cream that were not holistic and sustainable for our planet. So he kind of left that fortune behind to become the activist that he is. And you can learn more about John by going to his website. I put it into the chat box, but it's his name, johnrobbins.info. And that's where you can learn a lot more. He's got a really wonderful real food action guide that you can get for free. And he's just a beautiful, beautiful man. So, and since he talked about our animals, I figured it would be a good time to bring Jasmine Bear back. There she is. I'm getting my little evening kisses from her. And yeah, may she represent all those animals that he was talking about. You know, we all have been touched by animals, and thank God for our animal friends. So, all right, I'm going to bring Mirabai on to hear any thoughts she wants to share about John. And then we're going to close with a Larisa Stow song. And still want to read, please put in the chat box. Share with us more about your spiritual practices, your sacred activism. I see that Nancy just wrote that John noticed his dad's employees at Baskin-Robbins had a very high rate of heart attacks, so he did the opposite and gave up ice cream. Well, there you go. And yes, John's son Ocean, as I mentioned before, has been on the show before. I've known him since he was a boy, and he's beautiful also. So, all right, I'm going to bring on my co-host Mirabai. Hi, Mirabai.
Thank you, Scott. Hi. Yes, a very high diet of meat and dairy causes heart disease. John Robbins was one of my great heroes growing up. His book was one of my Bibles, still is. And I have done my best to adhere to a plant-based diet since 1987. And so I do want to say that I have also a great reverence and respect for John's message and his work in terms of promoting, taking care of, and loving and building relationships with all animals as beings, as spirits in a body, honoring and really treating them as you would a fellow human being. And what a world it would be if we could see an end to factory farming and the beginning of an honoring of animals and a love for animals. And again, I don't judge anybody who chooses a certain lifestyle or diet in terms of what they need for their own bodies and listening to their own bodies' innate wisdom. But I think it's very wise to at least read that book, Diet for a New America, and look into some of John's teachings and understand why, for your own health or for our own health, it's important to know these things and to also be aware of how animals are being treated around the world and to make that change in your life, if you can, in a conscious way. The last thing I wanted to just quickly add, Scott, is that before we go to Larisa and close the show, would there be time somewhere for me to just give a little short blessing, 1 minute guided visualization?
I would love that right now. Let's take it away.
Wonderful. I felt called to share this because we were talking about extinction, and we want to visualize that not happening to our world, not happening to our human race. We want to bring in this incredible rebirth opportunity and vision something so wonderful with us coming together collaboratively and being supported in raising consciousness and creating the new solutions that we already have, that so many already have brought into creation in the world. So with that thought in mind, I wanted to ask you all just to take a moment to close your eyes and to visualize inside of your heart or your heart chakra, a beautiful golden Buddha or a beautiful golden Krishna or blue Krishna or Jesus or Yeshua or Divine Mother Mary or Mahavatar Babaji, whoever you most relate to, Paramahansa Yogananda, and just visualize this radiant, self-effulgent, luminous light blessing coming out of your heart through and combined with the presence of this divine being, light being, and see this light coming from your heart and the hearts of all of us and all the people around the world that care so much about our awakening world and our awakening humanity. And see this golden beam, this golden glow, this golden emanation, like the rays of divine light, transforming humanity and regenerating the earth, the environment, our animals, our species, all beings, and see harmony and peace and love and co-creation, and take just a couple of seconds in silence just to visualize the future, the world that you would like to see, the awakening world, the awakened world, and what that future vision looks like for you. And let's see that beautiful golden light. Let's see that new future, that beautiful, cohesive, unified humanity in love with all beings working together in reverence, respect, and mutual cooperation. Thank you for joining us today in visualizing this, in feeling the golden light, and in coming back home to peace in your heart today. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much. And I want to just reference a couple of websites. So there's two websites I want to share with you where you can learn more about Mirabai. This one's beautiful, apoweroflove.com, apoweroflove.com. And please tell us a little bit about your membership program.
Yes, actually, if you go onto this website, you'll get access to my spiritual teachings, meditations, guided visualizations every month, a fresh new mantra, a fresh forgiveness prayer, a light transmission video, and also a beautiful series of spiritual practices and exercises. It's an online community to bring us together in a supportive structure to vision and be positive together through our spiritual practices, knowledge, and teachings. And then also on that website is the bookstore, which has, it's A Power of Love / storefront. And it has the private sessions, the retreats, it has the books, it has the CDs, it has the MP3s, it has the evergreen program material. So that's all on apoweroflove.com.
Beautiful. And then we're going to go to your other website, which is kind of your, whoops, no, I went back to Power of Love again. We are going to go to kind of your main one, mirabaidevi.org. Her name, Mirabai, Mirabai, Devi, Devi.org. And what would you like for me to kind of spotlight here?
Yeah, I think the main thing just to spotlight is that under teachings, there's pages of mantras, spiritual practices, forgiveness prayer practices, great affirmations for changing your life. And all of that is free. You can download it. You can practice it daily, incorporate it into your spiritual practice. There's people all over the world using these practices. So those are under the mantra sheets and the prayer practices. And then also we have a page on affirmations, a separate page underneath that actually, that gives some wonderful affirmations that I recommend you to use daily. And these are really powerful and life-changing to embody. And then we also have some of the programs under teleconferences, and we have the guided soul journey, which is a journey through your Akashic records, clearing karma and working through patterns. And that guided soul journey is a 5-week program done individually or in groups through mentorship. And then it goes into details around private sessions. And so there's also a lot more material. There's videos, there's a YouTube channel, there's all different teachings, both in print and on video. So there's like kind of a library in there if you want to learn more or research more, watch more.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all that you're doing for our awakening world. You are a busy Mirabai Devi. And there's so much content that you've created, and you're so generous with giving it away. And also, you're available sometimes for private sessions, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, private sessions on FaceTime, WhatsApp, Zoom, and phone with people from all over the world, all day, every day, for the past 30 years. So if you need any help with anything in your life, of course, any area, I work with people spiritually, psychically, intuitively, and also physically, for physical healing too. And I just want to mention, while I can, thank you so much to you, Scott. And you've been such a generous giver to all of us. It's just incredible the amount of energy you have to give and to share and collaborate and bring so many people to share their gifts and their wisdom. And I just want to say that Jasmine Bear is adorable, absolutely adorable. I think all of our hearts just melted with the pure love on her face as she gave you kisses. If only we could all embody the pure love of Jasmine Bear.
Absolutely. Yeah. My dogs are my greatest teachers. Absolutely. Because we're all striving to experience unconditional love and to give, and our dogs teach us every minute how to do that, so, and they're they're enlightened, they're fully present, they're all about play, they're completely forgiving. It's pretty remarkable. Mirabai, thank you so much for being my co-host tonight. It was a very spontaneous thing that I asked her a few days ago, and she said yes, and I look forward to co-hosting and playing with you in many ways down the line. You're a beautiful, beautiful being. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Scott. You too.
And we're going to actually, ironically, it's so perfect, we're going to end with a song by Larisa. And of course, Larisa is one of your best friends.
Soul sister, and I was there when she wrote Peacemakers over very many months. In fact, I was there when she wrote all of her core, most popular songs. But Peacemakers was one I was particularly inspired with by her lyrics and her work with James Twyman and also with Thomas Ashley Farrand. So I was part of the creation of some of those original tracks.
Oh, well, perfect. Well, I'm sure you probably know this one too that we're going to close the show with. So thank you, Mirabai. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Scott. You too. Thanks, everyone.
High-level heart, but she really channels spirit in her music. So I'm so happy to present again, Larisa Stow.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Thank you for having us. I invite everyone just to open up your body right now. We're going to be singing a hum prema. It means I am divine love. Marianne and Andrew were both talking about the importance of sacred practice, doing our spiritual practice. When we sing a hum prema, we're vibrating I am love. The universe is in my bones. A hum prema. The temple and the dark cacao. A hum prema. A hum prema. When the sun begins to fade, a hum prema.
I am divine love. 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 I am divine love.
You are divine love. I am divine love. We are divine love. What a beautiful, beautiful way to remember the ultimate truth. When I was with Larisa last weekend, and we did all the shows together, she really wanted most of all to promote, instead of her website, to promote her Facebook group. And if you haven't joined yet, please join Larisa's Shakti Love Warriors. It's a great group. Every day, 7 days a week, they do a meditation at 11:11. Different people lead it, sometimes Larisa, sometimes other people. And it's a wonderful group that's just got all sorts of wonderful things happening. And there's a lot of Global Peace Tribe connection. You can see, of course, right here, the shows that I did with her last weekend, including Mirabai. So do join Larisa's Shakti Love Warriors. I'm putting that link into the page. Also, I am glad I remembered, I want to tell you about tomorrow. Of course, tomorrow is my Sacred Sunday show, and I have a really, really beautiful guest that I'm going to be bringing on. She's a longtime friend of mine. Her name is Mandolin Reese. She lives in Texas, and she is the street angel. She goes into large public places like the stadiums and big marketplaces. Usually she wears angel wings, and she carries signs like the one you're seeing there: stop bullying, be kind. And she is the street angel. She is a beautiful, beautiful being, and she's going to be my special guest tomorrow. And we're going to talk about what it's like to be an earth angel. So many of you are earth angels, maybe all of us, I don't know. But she is, like so many, super empathetic, very sensitive, and how she manages that and does such courageous work in the world. So please join us tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock Pacific time, 1 o'clock East Coast, for my special guest, Mandolin Reese, the street angel. All right, as I love to do, I'm going to go to, and thank you for all the wonderful comments. I see Dia and Karen and Eleanor Joy, and many of you are Mary Beth expressing your appreciation for the show. And I appreciate all of you. I'm going to go to gallery view. So turn on your cameras. Don't be shy. I know many of you are in your pajamas, but this is always a chance. Turn on the cameras, say goodnight. There's Karen. And thank you again, Mirabai, Scotty, and Eleanor, and Susan, and all sorts of our friends turning on their cameras. There they are. Much love to all of you. Hope to see you tomorrow morning for the Sacred Sunday show. Thanks for being with us. And much, much love. You're all so precious. And how blessed we are to be part of this beautiful Global Peace Tribe. Take care, everybody. God's blessings, and have a beautiful evening.